Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 82. Famine Relief in Orissa. Due to the poor monsoon of 1965, the Orissa famine of 66 was at its worst. The interstate boundaries created by politicians hampered smooth movement of food from surplus state to deficient state. Thus, the man-made scarcity was aggravated by natural calamity. Questions were raised in Parliament, but without results. In matters of food, Orissa is a deficient state, and the famine aggravated people's suffering beyond endurance. People were emaciated due to lack of nourishment, and in the absence of edible food they would eat leaves and mahuda. The poverty and starvation reached such a stage that the hungry aborigines would kill birds, insects, and even serpents to feed themselves. Despite all efforts, the figure of starvation deaths was mounting. All this was printed in newspapers and was a matter of public knowledge, and yet the power-drunk politicians could do nothing to solve the acute problem. The Christian missionaries, taking advantage of the situation, started relief work to propagate conversion. The poor starving aborigines welcomed the missionaries and were willing to trade their religion for the price of survival and get converted to Christianity. At such a time, Gurudev sacrificed his restful, solitary stay at Virpur and sent out messages to Bombay, Jamnagar, Indore and Chitrakoot, the devotees to come forward and fight the Orissa famine. By a happy coincidence, the Congress Working Committee session was being held in Bombay, and at Gurudev's inspiration, Keshubhai and Vallabhbhai met the Orissa Chief Minister Shri S. Tripathi in Bombay and spoke to him about the famine, assuring him that they will not ask for any other assistance except non-interference by the government agencies in their relief work. The CM was extremely happy and agreed to procure for them food grains and building materials for the camp at controlled prices. After arranging all this, both Vallabhbhai and Keshubhai met Gurudev at Virpur. At that time, Pujya Shri was extremely indisposed, yet he sat up for 3 hours and explained all preliminaries about the relief work to the devotees, such as how to economize on time, efforts, expenses, food grains, etc. He also suggested to them that as a precaution to prevent the Adivasis from selling away food grains for drinks, they should be given cooked meals only. He got prepared a list of grains, edible oils, spices, etc., which would be needed over there. After dispatching Vallabhbhai and Keshubhai to Orissa, Pujya Shri prepared himself to join them, and Girdhar Bapa gave a handsome amount for the project, and his second son Batuk Bhai was also to join in the relief work. In the extreme heat of Saurashtra, Gurudev travelled from village to village, and the devotees agreed to offer their services physically, mentally, and in the form of cash contributions to the maximum extent. Before leaving Saurashtra, Gurudev told them, "The missionaries are exploiting this calamity to tempt the famine-stricken hungry people with food and money to convert them to Christianity. By working over there, we will be able to perform threefold services. 1. Anna Yagna, 2. Service of humanity, and 3. Defense of our religion. But never think even for a moment that you are going to provide food for the hungry and helpless people, but always think that through service to them, God has given you an opportunity to atone for your past deeds, and thus by coming to your camp to accept your services, these people are in fact obliging you. Do not give donation to please others, because even a rupee given with love is better than a big amount given on account of compulsion. Always think of the people who come to you as your brothers and sisters or guests. Be kind and compassionate to them, and never insult anybody. Do not forget that you are not going there for rest and respite, but for giving solace and relief to others. The money collected for the good cause should be spent with as much economy and thrift as if it was our own money, earned by the sweat of our brow." The first camp commenced in Sarda in Sundargarh district And here the famine was so intense and horrifying that no voluntary organization had dared to come. The name given to the undertaking was Orissa Food Relief Committee. On the inaugural day, Shira was prepared. Some of the volunteers came from such rich families that they never had to fetch a glass of water for themselves, and yet all of them had left their comfortable homes at the words "Let's go" spoken by the Gurudev. They would do such hard work like drawing water from wells, lifting sack full of grains, erecting tents, cutting vegetables, serving food, and leveling ground with pickaxes and shovels without consideration of day or night. Camps were also started at Chandi Post, Jambli and Kemblang. Pujya Shri's headquarters was at Roorkela, but he could go there hardly once in every 5 days. Roorkela was 21, 54 and 70 miles respectively from Sorda, Jambli and Kemblang. All of them were located in remote places and deep forest with hardly any road to reach them. Despite having a car, one had to walk and cross several nalas and streams. Sorda was only 8 miles from Navgaon station, and yet when it rained the slippery mud made it necessary to alight from the jeep, and one could only proceed further after providing traction for the wheels by filling up the potholes with stones and tree branches. The job of delivering provisions to all the camps was very difficult, yet the volunteers worked with untiring zeal. The staple diet of Orissa is rice, and therefore the meals prepared in each camp consisted of rice, dal and vegetables. Every center catered to about 5,000 people, and time needed to prepare meals for such large numbers was such that only one meal per day could be served. Their appetite was beyond our imagination. One bucketful of cooked rice would hardly suffice for 3 people. They could come for meals at any time between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. To reach the camp for their meals, many walked over distances of 4 to 5 miles from their villages. The government officials who came from time to time wondered how meals could be provided for so many people at one time. All the camps were in dense forest, infested by poisonous things such as scorpions, snakes, and dangerous beasts like tigers. The volunteers on occasion would find a black scorpion in their bedding when they would be preparing to retire for the night. But despite all the dangers inherent as mentioned in such places, by Gurudev's grace, none came to any harm. At the camp, some of the Adivasis would eat a square meal and then try to take along eatables wrapped up in leaf plates surreptitiously for the next meal. Once a hot-headed volunteer snatched such a bundle from an Adivasi's hand amidst an angry exchange of words. When Pujya Shri came to know about it in Roorkela, he admonished solemnly, "Never be thrifty in feeding. Go around and announce that the people were not to take away any food. But despite this, if somebody still does so, don't stop him. After all, they are our guests, and they are to be served by us. We are not obliging them, but they are obliging us. We ought to be able to provide 2 meals, which we are unable to do, and therefore if they carry away eatables for the second meal, then in effect they are saving us the labor of cooking the next meal. Therefore, never humiliate them." In Chandi Post, Guru Purnima was celebrated with joy, and everyone who came for the meal was given stitched clothes and saris and dhotis. The people here, though lazy, are honest. If someone got 2 pairs erroneously, they would come and return one of them. For 4 months during the camp, an incessant stream of donations poured in, as if the donors were vying with one another. As soon as enough funds were collected, all were requested to stop sending donations. Some money orders had to be returned. Perhaps this was the first relief organization that had to publish in newspapers, "Please do not send any more donations to Orissa Food Relief Committee." Devotees from Bombay, Rajkot, Kutch, MP, Saurashtra, and Mahatmas of Chitrakoot gave their wholehearted services in the camp, and it continued for 4 months till the new harvest reached homes. On the last day, Gurudev said, "As a thin piece of string could do nothing, but when spun together as a thick cord, it can even be used to tie up the mighty elephant. Similarly, without your wholehearted cooperation and well-coordinated efforts, I could not have done anything. You have turned the impossible into possible." After announcing closure of the camp from the 15th October, while volunteers were packing and loading their luggage on trucks, at the usual mealtime, they saw thousands flocking towards them, and they told them, "As announced before, there will be no meals henceforth." They said with tearful eyes, "Sarkar, we did not come for meals. For the last 4 months you have been providing meals, and with your ceaseless toils you have saved our lives. Now that you are going back to your homes, we have come to express our gratitude and to bid goodbye to our saviors." Thus, overwhelmed by the love of these simple souls, the volunteers unloaded and unpacked their luggage and lovingly prepared that day's meal, and after serving the same to them, they once again boarded the waiting trucks. On their part, the Adivasis, with tearful eyes, kept on waving their farewells till the departing trucks could be seen. By organizing camp in this dense forest, Pujya Shri not only did Anya Dan, but he also did Sanskriti Dan. As a result, thousands of potential converts to Christianity were retained in our ancient fold to chant Ram Nam. Indeed, such an infinite stream of humanitarianism could achieve even the apparently impossible. Pujya Shri's work demonstrates to all of us that unlike the barren rumbling of clouds, the lightning spreads its luster instantaneously. Similarly, instead of dry discourses on religion, performance of solid good deeds could attract more people towards religion, and they would then remain steadfast in their renewed faith. Truly, an ounce of action speaks louder than a ton of words. Jai Bhagwan. Sarve Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukhamapnuyat.
Documentary of famine relief in Orissa and the charitra-darshan of Gurudev.